God, that whatever we're coming to do right here, you shall guide us, Modimo wa ka. Wa sepela le rena tsela e ka moka kgoši ya go loka. Ka lebitso la Morena Jesu, I pray for every speaker who's going to speak on this podium, my Lord, that you give them wisdom that surpasses all understanding, dear God, that only you will be the one, Modimo wa ka lokileng, who's going to comfort us and comfort the family in the name of Jesus. Father, we declare that this place shall be blessed. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Joe. Honorable Minister, my colleagues from national departments, my colleagues from the provincial department, my colleagues from the local government, and our media personnel from the community media and also from the mainstream, former colleagues of Ronnie, good morning. It is a sad day for us as a profession in the public service that we are here maybe to celebrate, but I think also to mourn Ronnie. I think a number of us have been touched by Ronnie in various ways. And I think this room says it all. I think Ronnie touched a number of government officials, but importantly, I think Ronnie touched the members of the media. I think today, in the next 3 hours, we will hear a number of stories from some of our officials and also some of the media practitioners in how Ronnie touched them. We have a packed program. I think we've tried our best to accommodate everybody. But what we have come to terms with is that most people want to say something. We have made an arrangement outside that those who feel strongly that they would like to send some messages of condolences to the Mamoepa family, we have put in a camera outside wherein you can just go outside and offer your condolences in our video. And we also have a number of speakers, but I think what we would like to request in advance to our speakers, if they could try and keep to the 10 minutes so that we can be able to accommodate everybody. We are about to commence with our program, and I don't know whether Seppo is ready. Our first speaker is from the family, who are just going to share with us the life towards the end, where Ronnie passed away on Saturday evening. So I don't know whether Tsepo, you are ready. So can we hand over to yourself?
Good morning, Minister, the DG, all protocol observed. Good morning. I'm the younger brother to Ronnie. I come immediately after him. We were 5 at home. We are now 2 left. It's my sister and myself. He was fine. He went to Lesotho on the 16th for the inauguration with the DP. He came back, and on the 17th, or the 18th, yeah, on Sunday, which was the Father's Day, they organized a massage for him at home. And unlike him, he just accepted. He was a very difficult man. He wouldn't accept anything just like that. When he came back for that massage around 6, he was just in a hurry. He said he has got an appointment with the DP at his home. He went to that meeting, he came back around 11 in the evening, 11, 12 in the at night. Why am I saying in the evening? At night. He started reading his newspapers, the Sunday newspapers. After reading those newspapers, as is requested, that because of he was a chain smoker, his wife requested him that every time before he comes to bed, he should brush his teeth. So he went to the bathroom to brush the teeth and wash his hands and all of those things. He didn't come back from the bathroom. He collapsed on his way back from the bathroom. The wife said that he noticed that the guy didn't come back from the bathroom, so she went to check as to whatever that was happening. She found him lying there on the floor. The only thing that he could say was that he cannot breathe. She called the ambulance and called the son and the helpers in the house to come and assist. So, you know, in such instances, you'll think that 5 minutes would turn into 30 minutes or an hour. So they decided that they should pick him up, and then they thought that the ambulance was taking forever, you see. So they decided to pick him up. They realized that the right hand was not functioning properly. It was becoming stiff. They assisted one another to take him downstairs. So when they reached downstairs, they saw the ambulance lights coming in on Trini Street. So the guys from EMS started giving him oxygen, and they even put in a drip on him and then drove to Unitas. When they arrived there at Unitas, they even pumped oxygen again there. He was not speaking at all. At 10, they took him to theater for the major surgery. They opened on the right-hand side because of he had intracranial bleeding on the right-hand side. They sedated him, and he was comatose from that day. On the third week, we thought things were coming okay because of, they said he will wake up maybe after 2 or 3 weeks. So on the second week, it was still, the vitals were okay and everything was okay. The pressure in the head was coming down. Because of when he was admitted, the pressure was somewhere around 33. It's supposed to be less than 10. So on the third week, everything was coming okay. It was as if he was going to come out of coma. So they discovered that the pressure was now going up on the third week. They discovered that they took him for RMI scan, and discovered that there was a clot on the frontal lobe. The first bleeding affected the right-hand side of his brain. The second one affected the left-hand side of the brain. they said there was nothing that they can do medically. We then requested Minister Motsoaledi to intervene. He brought in Professor Mokgokong on the fourth week, towards the fourth week. Professor Mokgokong, and okay, before Professor Mokgokong, we asked for a second opinion, whereby Professor Kakaza from Steve Biko and some doctors there went and spoke to the neurologist who took him to theater. They were saying in that direction that what happened, it cannot be reversed and all of those things. So we asked Minister Motsoaledi to come in, and he sent in Professor Mokgokong. Professor Mokgokong said that what the doctors in Unitas have done, it was the best. And where the second lot was, they cannot operate at all. And to them, they said that he was now suffering. And it was bad. It was the bad news that the family was expecting at that moment in time. They said that the only way that we can release him into the hands of the Almighty, and they will start to reduce the sedation and all the medication in the body. And truly, to whatever Professor Mokgokong has said that we're making him to suffer, we saw that at the ultimate end. On Saturday last week, because of whatever that we saw there, it was not a very good sight. It was a very bad sight. He was bleeding through his ears, nose, and mouth. It was a very bad sight. We accepted and said that because of when we pray, we say, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." He passed on around 11:20 midnight on that Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsepo. On behalf of the communicators in government and also the members of the media, would like to express our deepest condolences. As you can see in this room, Ronnie had touched a lot of us. I think we are still in a bit of shock, and I think this is another way of coming to terms that he is gone. And thank you for availing yourself. We understand how difficult it is, but may his soul rest in peace. We have invited a number of representatives from the media and from the provinces who are also going to share their tributes on behalf of government and on behalf of the media fraternity. May I, before I invite the members from the foreign correspondents, acknowledge Reverend Mkajwa, who has come to join us in paying tribute to Ronnie Mamoepa. May I also invite the representative from the foreign correspondents, Mr. Crosby.
Good morning, Minister. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, friends of Ronnie. As the foreign press in South Africa, we often occupy a more marginal position than our domestic colleagues, not caught up in the daily cycle of morning TV bulletins or drive time radio roundups. On the downside, this means that we're sometimes confused bystanders to the increasingly convoluted South African story. It also makes it harder for us to strike up strong relationships with top officials and their spokesmen and spokeswomen. In both of these respects, Ronnie was an exception. Warm-hearted, respectful, and generous of his time and knowledge, Ronnie was always happy to fill in the gaps for the bewildered outsider, in many cases supplementing his tidbits, advice, and background with an offer of a quick chat with top officials, including most recently the DP. Before that, during the dark days of the xenophobic violence in 2008, as Home Affairs spokesman, he would unfailingly take calls at any time of day and night, on any day of the week, fielding questions politely, respectfully, and as accurately as he could. It pains me to say that in South Africa today, there are many government departments where this is not the case. For Ronnie, openness and transparency were a must, without which are bred the suspicion and distrust that now permeates so many aspects of public life in the democracy that he fought so tirelessly to build. It is worth remembering that prominent among the cluster of officials who led President Nelson Mandela to cast his first vote as a 76-year-old man at Yohlanga High School in Durban in 1994 was Ronnie Mamoepa. Above all else, in all the foreign media's dealings with Ronnie, he was first and foremost a person, sharing a common interest and humanity that transcended the sometimes awkward barriers that can exist between reporter and reported. As Reuters bureau chief, it's very sad that the last time I spoke in person to Ronnie was a couple of months ago, just after he delivered a heartfelt and beautifully written eulogy on behalf of Deputy President Ramaphosa at the memorial of Judah Ngwenya, one of the finest photographers who has ever worked for Reuters on the African continent. To be standing here now doing the same for Ronnie, who also was plucked too soon from our midst, is not right or fair. Ronnie, from all in the Foreign Press Corps in South Africa, you will be sorely missed. Truly, you are one of the good guys.
Thank you very much, Ed. I'm reminded with some of the stories of Ronnie when he was the spokesperson of the Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma in Derco. And he told me a very funny story, and he says, "No, come, let me tell you a story." There was this journalist who wanted to interview Minister Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, and she just couldn't handle the red tape of the PA, the administrator, the whatever. And he then made a promise to the journalist to say, "I am going to get you Minister Nkosazana Zuma to be interviewed." And waited for Nkosazana to arrive in the car for an event. And when she opened the door, there was a journalist, and she had so told the journalist, "Have your questions ready, you will get," and then when Nkosazana opened, and there was a journalist with question, and he tells me this story, and he says, "Guess what happened? The minister didn't have a choice. He had to respond, and when I finished, I left with the journalist because I knew he was going to give me hell." And he says, "Guess what, Pumla? She was angry with me, but what? I'm going to do it again and again and again to do my job." So those were some of the moments of Ronnie. I think our next speaker is from the local government. I don't know whether Selby, are you here? Can I move to the next speaker that is available? Is Thabo Masebe available? Okay. Can we take Sanef that is ready? Sam, I can see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pumla. Father Mkachwa, Honorable Minister, DG, Mamoepa family, friends of Ronnie, colleagues on both sides of the communications divide, South Africans, good morning. I have a difficult job of talking about Ronnie Mamoepa, a wonderful gentleman who was larger than life. He loved and he was loved. He was a friend of us in the Fourth Estate and a friend of his colleagues in government communications. He was also a colleague to his principals and bosses because he was a politician in his own right. And he never let that go to his head. Humble to the core. He treated everybody equally. He was a special, special gentleman. He is part of a special generation of spokespeople. Pax Mankahlane, Joel Nechitenje, Temba Maseko, Begi Kumalo, Mjongwa, who wrote a beautiful, beautiful tribute about Ronnie in the Star on Monday, sharing a number of stories about the special communicator that this professional will talk about, this patriot was. He had a lot of special skills. In addition to his special heart, he had charisma, which he used almost all the time when he had to break through to send a government message. He never allowed his frustrations with the media when we got things wrong, as we sometimes do, to get in the way of the message. His other tool was his knowledge level. We all in the media have had the opportunity to drink from his well of wisdom. He could hold his own on important matters in public policy, from economic development to foreign relations. He was very sharp, yet very patient. He raised the bar in terms of public service. He gave us a benchmark to measure ourselves and our colleagues on the other side of the communications divide. What Ronnie was not, he was not a populist, and he was not a groupie. His job was never to handle the social media accounts of his principals. His job was never to run around and behind politicians, carrying their handbags, shielding them from public scrutiny. He was never a gatekeeper. He gave us great access to the politicians he served. I remember he organized a briefing, a meeting between the government led by the Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa and SANEF, where we had a wonderful opportunity to interact with the Deputy President and a number of ministers. And halfway through the meeting, and because journalists are trained initially to ask questions and sometimes fail to engage and interact as we interrogate, we asked a number of questions, and Ronnie got annoyed with us. And he grabbed the mic and said, "I'm sorry to remind you, this is not an elevated press conference." And we were all appropriately rebuked. Because he was comfortable in his own skin and he had authority to do these things. And we respected him. We listened to him. He understood politics because he was a politician in himself. He understood the values of this great nation, where we're from, and the principles and the pillars of the Constitution, taking it back to the Freedom Charter, because he understood these things. He lived them. He's not the kind of populist spokesman, as we have seen others, who would drive a racist wedge in their communication. People who drive a narrow kind of nationalism, who expect us as journalists to turn a blind eye when a black government fumbles. He never expected us to keep quiet when our government was doing wrong. He never protected corrupt politicians and incompetent officials. That is the kind of Ronnie we have. He never said when there was negative press enjoyed by the government that this was because of the ownership patterns in the media, because he understood this. At some stage, he wanted to own a newspaper because he understood that it was important for Africans to own newspapers, and they have owned newspapers. But fundamentally, Ronnie understood that ownership of newspapers does not translate to change in content and readership patterns. He understood this at a deep and substantive level. He would joke about it. Stembi Somsomi reminds me that at the time he worked for the City Press, and Ronnie said, hey, I'm gonna bring you back to the Sunday Times because I'll be owning it, and you're gonna be my sports editor. We are really grateful to have experienced Ronnie, a very, very special gentleman. Behind him come a good crop of special spokespeople. The likes of the Nomfanelo Kotas, and if you go down to Parliament, you'll find the Nongabam Mhlaulis. Very special, capable women. And you are truly grateful to the party that has groomed these people to serve not the party, but the public. We've seen the others, the Harold Malukas coming up, and you then wonder, how is it that the public service could be saved by the kind of people and the spokespeople who think the descendants of the Khoi and the Sen are not allowed to live in the Cape of Good Hope? They must therefore move. How is it possible that the public service could have its occupants, people like Hlaudi Mutsoeneng, when there are these capable professionals, men and women, proud patriots of South Africa? South Africans, we are really grateful to the skill of this wonderful, wonderful gentleman. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sam. Can we have a choir whilst we have another trench?
No, it's a video. Even if now you focus on
Thank you very much, choir. Colleagues, to those who are just standing there, we have an overflowing room in the media room. We are streaming the whole event, so you can be able to go and sit in the media room. You'll get the same product. Can we move on? I see Selby is here. Can we have Selby from the local government to pay tribute to Ronnie?
Thank you, Program Director. Excuse me, I'm a bit fluish. I apologize for being late. My understanding was that the program was starting at 10. Good morning, colleagues. The Mamoepa family, friends, thanks for the honor bestowed upon me to speak about this fallen gentle giant, Ronnie Mamoepa. While the advent of social media has revolutionized communication and the speed with which news filters through, it has also spawned some bad behavior in the communication sphere. One of the bad developments of social media was what we had witnessed on Saturday evening when news of Ronnie's alleged passing on spread like wildfire. I was livid when I saw the tweet from a certain discredited publication that prematurely announced the passing on of Ronnie Mamoepa. And I tweeted the following: the killers of government communicator Ronnie Mamoepa on social media deserve to rot in hell. Please respect the man, his family, and the presidency, I tweeted. Despite the presidency having issued a statement saying that while Ronnie's condition was critical and unstable, he was still alive. That didn't stop social media from going ablaze. Then I read a tweet from actress Florence Masebe that pretty much captured the essence of my disgust. She asked a poignant question: why rush to be the first in the rest in peace race? Yes, I'm calling it a race because we behave as if there's a trophy for it. End quote. This is one of the bad elements of social media. That criticism notwithstanding, I'm a firm believer in social media and its significance and impact in the communication arena. When ultimately news broke out officially, factually, accurately, and truthfully that indeed Ronnie Mamoepa was no more, I posted on both my Facebook and Twitter accounts on Sunday that the time had come for Ronnie Mamoepa to leave this world. He had done his best in the race and he had run the full distance. Now, some of you that understand the Black Book would know that this is a passage from 2 Timothy chapter 4, from verse 6 to verse 8. But who was Ronnie Mamoepa? I first met Ronnie in the mid-90s at the then ANC headquarters at Shell House in downtown Johannesburg when I was a journalist. He was full of life, jocular, bubbly, self-deprecating, and respectful. Minister Baton Zimande correctly told the media on Monday during his visit to the Mamoepa family that Ronnie had an amazing relationship with the media. He told the media, and I watched on the news, you used to eat out of his palm. President Beki referred to him as the Dean of Government Communications. I refer to him as the doyen of government communications. I'm yet to come across anyone who has anything bad to say about Ronnie Mamoepa. Or to say anything bad about his grasp of communication and his professionalism. Most of those of my generation drank from Ronnie's fountain of knowledge. But Ronnie impressed me the most when President Mandela was campaigning during the local government elections in KwaMakuta in 1996, when I worked for some Bantustan TV station. Back then. Yeah. There was a ring of steel at the stadium which was teeming with security personnel, given the nature of the political violence that had gripped KwaZulu-Natal in those years. And there'd also been a massacre in KwaMakuta called the KwaMakuta Massacre. The stadium was tense. Police had formed a human shield that separated the crowd from the political principals on stage. And now, because of the security situation, and the audio quality was poor, and journalists couldn't get what Madiba was saying. So some of us approached Ronnie and said to him that we wanted a word with Madiba. It was a mammoth task. But Ronnie, being Ronnie, saved the day. He allowed us access to the old man, much to the annoyance of the security personnel. I remember overhearing one of the Presidential Protection Unit members saying to Ronnie, Ronnie, do your job, and we'll do ours. He wasn't chuffed with Ronnie at all. But Ronnie understood his role very well, that of being the conduit between the media and his principal. And he executed that duty with aplomb. Ronnie was not a gatekeeper. I'm not copying for your speech, Kokeli, I heard it. Ronnie was not a gatekeeper, he was a facilitator. Ronnie did not make the news, he delivered the news. Well, some of us did make the news, accidentally so. But we learned from that. Very important. Ronnie represented what I call old school. Now, some of you, when we talk of old school, we're thinking of old school music, the Kwaito and bubblegum and all of that. But the old school I'm talking about is the old school of communication. There was nothing superlative about him. He just stuck to the basics. He comprehended the symbiotic relationship between the media and government. He understood that we needed the media in as much as the media needed us. Some of our contemporaries today have become spokespersons, come close protection officers, also known as bodyguards. They do things that are foreign to the communication craft. They do things that obstruct the media from carrying out their duties. They even obstruct themselves and their principals from carrying out their duties. It is not the duty of a spokesperson to stop a camera, to block a camera from recording. It's not your job. Ronnie belonged to that golden era of a galaxy of communication experts like Joel Nechitenje. The English call him Joel, we call him Joel. You know, Joel. Tony True, and I'm told, program director, that when Madiba delivered his inauguration speech on the 10th of May 1994, that part in the speech that said, never and never again shall this beautiful country of ours experience racism of one by da, da, da. I'm told that part was inserted by Tony True. I don't know how true is that. But that era of Tony True, Joel Nechitenje, Ilva Makeilanga, the late Pax Mankatlana, and many more, is the generation that we look up to. But Ronnie was not perfect. I'm sure he made mistakes, like all of us have done and continue to do. If there's a communicator who can claim not to have made a mistake in his or her career, then that communicator was not working. When I worked for a certain institution, I used to bounce ideas of the likes of Ronnie and Joel, and they were always willing to lend a helping hand. We appreciated their counsel, knowledge, experience, expertise, and wisdom. Nowadays, when we are faced with probing media inquiries, the common refrain is, we've noted the allegation, or the matter is sub judice, even when the matter is not sub judice. GCIS, as the strategic center of government communication, needs to reclaim the space and give guidance and strategic direction to communicators across all the three spheres of government. It would be a Waterloo for government communication in general if GCIS didn't step in to arrest the rot that has set in. Let's go back to the ideals and ethos the likes of Ronnie cherished. This morning, I woke up to a moving tribute by journalist and friend Jovial Randao, which he posted on Facebook, to which I was tagged. And I want to quote a line or so. He wrote, Randao, Mamoepa was not good, but excellent in his sometimes thankless job. One of Mamoepa's beautiful strengths, in addition to his amazing ability, was his humility. He was happy to be the prince without wanting to be king. He was happy to serve South Africa without expecting reward. Ronnie knew his political home, but as a senior public servant, he never publicly exhibited his political colors in carrying out his duties. He was able to distinguish between party and state. Not what we are seeing today. Sometimes we see things and you conclude that this communicator, if this principal were to leave office, would never work for anyone. We should live by the values that Ronnie espoused. I'm told I've got a minute left, so I'm going to cut out some of the things that I had prepared. But when I last saw Ronnie, we were at the IEC Results Center last year at the old Pretoria Showgrounds during the local government elections. He insisted that we take a photograph together, which I've posted, uploaded as my Facebook profile picture in memory of this gentle giant. We discussed politics. We shared stuff when we met. and we both correctly predicted the outcome of the August 2016 elections, because the writing was on the wall. Farewell, my brother, mentor, colleague, friend. May your departed soul rest in eternal peace and rise in glory. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Selby. For those who came late, I think we requested that if we could stick to 10 minutes so that we are able to stick to our time. So I'm going to request the speakers that will be coming next, if they could stick to the 10 minutes or even less. Whilst we invite Tsepo Ikaneng, can we have just one short song whilst we invite Tsepo?
Leboha, Baha Mamoepa, Minister Dlodlo, Reapleni senior government officials, colleagues, friends, families. Mine is just a personal story about how I related to Ronnie Mamoepa. A lot has been said already, has been written about his good attributes, but mine is just a short personal story. I knew him from the early 90s when he was still spokesperson for ANC at Shell House, which is now called the Tuli House. I was in my second year in 1993 at University of then Bophuthatswana doing my internship at this, what Selby told you, that is Bantustan organization, Bob Broadcasting Corporation then. As a young boy who was studying media, something happened in 1993, immediately after the killing, brutal killing of Chris Hani. And it was in one of the memorial lectures that Peter Mugabe addressed in Cape Town, if you remember well, when he said those who shoot the Boer, kill the Boer, kill the farmer. And that speech by Peter invoked a strong of emotions then when the situation was very volatile and Madiba was not happy. Remember that he also took lead in terms of reining in Peter at that particular time. I was still an intern. And as an activist, because I was an intern studying, I was a SASCO member at University of Bophuthatswana. I went to my editor then to say that I want to interview Peter Mugabe about this thing because I know that he had a tough talk from the old man Madiba. And my editor said, forget it, you won't talk to Peter. Nobody will give you that interview from the ANC in Shell House in Johannesburg, and we are based here in Mahikeng, remember. And then I looked through the contacts there, and I called the man called Ronnie Mamoepa. No, I'm Tsepo from Bob Broadcasting. Okay, I know it, basically. He was so warm for the first time. I want to talk to Peter Mugabe. I want to know about this kill the farmer thing. Are you serious? are you a journalist? Kare, no, I'm still an intern. Oh, but who's your editor? Why can't you send your editor? Kare, no, I just want to do and see and speak to the man. No, you are very junior. Which year can Molela say, no. Get your degree and come back to Little House. After that, I said, okay, give me your number. I gave him my number. There was no cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone. After about 2 hours, he calls me back. Are you still want to talk to Peter? Kare, yes, it was a Wednesday. Give me your editor's number. I gave him my editor's number. After an hour, that guy called me to an office. There was a serious meeting with other seniors and people to say, hey, you want to go to Shell House? And those editors, I don't want to mention them by name, they were still reluctant to embrace what was coming in because it was before the fall of the Mamoepa regime at that particular time to say, we got a call from Shell House. Are you working for those people? No. We also hear or we are from Sasco. What do you want to get? We want to promote propaganda. No, I just want to talk to the men because this was a topical story at that particular time. And Ronnie called them and said, I want this man to come. He must drive to Joburg. I came to Joburg. He gave me an appointment. Come on Monday. I drove from Mafikeng to Shell House then. I didn't know Joburg. I came with the cameraman. I was doing TV that particular time. I arrived there. He said 12 o'clock. Monday. I arrived at the Little House then, Shell House. After 2 p.m., I was in his office with something like this with Madiba's face, that office, that famous office of his. And then came Peter Mokaba. Talk to this boy. Hey, man. Peter, who's this boy? No, it's the journalist from Bob Broadcasting. I don't want to talk to Bantustan organization. No. He went, hey, I direct you. Talk to this man. Peter didn't believe it. And I said, yeah, this guy, I set up the cameras. And then he sat down. What are we talking about? And then we spoke about the long history. I got the interview. And immediately after that interview, he was open with me to talk to about the struggle and what he was meant to say and what Madiba said, but off the record, it was still off the record then. And then before I left, Peter said, Tsepo, come here. I'm planning to come and overturn Muso wa Mamoepa. You must come and cover me. I need your numbers. He took me. That was the beginning of the relationship I had with Peter Mokaba through Ronnie Mamoepa. And I'm thankful for that, and for the rest is history. Fast forward 2002, when I was still there was the inter-Congolese dialogue that was brokered by former President Thabo Mbeki. I was still based in Mahikeng, and Ronnie recommended that I come there to cover that story because it was in our region in Sun City, and my editors allowed me to do that. We spent close to 3 months in that resort with the Congolese politicians. He knew how long that process took. It was mediated by the late Sekitumile Masire. During those 3 months, I managed to establish a bond with Mamoepa. Like when I penned the eulogy in honor of Sekitumile Masire, when we heard the news on the 22nd of June that he has passed on, Bra Ronnie was still also in hospital. And I paused, and I wrote that post around 2 p.m. After working very closely with Remasire for such a long time, it was Ronnie who opened the doors for me to be able to access Remasire, to be able to get the updates about the status of the talks with regard to the inter-Congolese dialogue. Ronnie was there day and night. We were there for 3 months. Ronnie was able to also mobilize the Congolese press because at that time, there was war. We know that when they came to the negotiations, we have the Kabila clique, the Chisekedis, and then we had those from Pierre Bemba. So the journalists were not covering, basically, the stories as they developed. They were covering their own factional opinions, basically not even attending to the press conference, sitting in the bars, but Ronnie was doing the backroom, what we call diplomacy, in terms of guys telling them about where we come from as a country, to say that please play a role as the media in terms of making sure that there's a government of national unity, that eventually
came to being. It was Ronnie who was doing all these backroom dealings in terms of making sure that people are not, the journalists who were very much factionalized in political terms are able to come together and report on the positives that came out of Sun City. So what I want to really relate to you, Ronnie was just not a communicator. He was somebody who did a lot of work. And that's why when I came to Pretoria to come and work here, they called him Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, because he was able to talk to the members of the diplomatic corps here in Pretoria. He was able to talk to the media. He was able to carry out the message that was coming from Pretoria in terms of our standing as a country and communicate our foreign policy. It was through Boroni that we were able, as journalists, when we traveled the world over, able to gain the confidence of our ambassadors at that particular time. During the first time, you talk about Ambassador Kumalo, Bore Marchida, when they were still in Brazil, Bore Nene, Bore, a lot of them who were doing a lot of work in Africa and abroad. He dragged them basically to our hotels to say, come and talk to the media. We need this story. We need to know why we have deployed there. He was able to tell an ambassador in front of his, we deployed here to come and work, come and talk to the South African media. Please tell them why the president is coming here. It was Ronnie. And like the previous speaker said, he would just bring them here and then make sure that they speak to us. And after that, he doesn't go to them and say, no, they're going to shout at me, but I'm going to stay with you. He's always with the media. So my message in closing is that the spear has fallen. The great son of the soil is no more. Throughout this life, he really espoused high ethical conduct, a man always brimming with broad smile, able to reach out to, like what Mkhokeli said, what has been described as a hostile press, the man who was able to really mend bridges and also make sure that he really developed good working relations, not only with the media, but his staff, members of the diplomatic corps, like I said, and leaders of opposition parties, by the way. If you really followed on their responses, it was like they know, they acknowledge his contribution. So to me, I say, in memory of Ronnie, I think many things have been said. One, I would quote in closing, a journalist who has not had many opportunities to interact with Ronnie, Kaya Kumalu from ENCA, said we need to have an academy of communicators named after Ronnie. And what I can tell you is a good suggestion. And one of the things, an interaction I had with Ronnie, where he nearly cried, came to tears, was when we were at the Sefaka Makhato building, before it started working where DERCO is based now, OR Chambo building. He took me by the hand and said, Sepo, let's go back at the Makhato and say, you saw this building. I can die peacefully now. This is the work that we've put there. I'm happy that we have our head office, this caliber of a head office that is state of the art. And I think maybe our authorities should also consider maybe naming some of those auditoriums or boardrooms after this gentle giant. So to the family, we'll always remember Bra Ronnie. He has inspired us, and I think we'll take his legacy forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tepo. We will have a short song, but the next speaker, I just thought I wanted to say something. Put Ronnie with Clayson and Thabo and hope they will finish the statement. Half of the time they argue. They nearly drove me crazy, but they had such a wonderful relationship. But yes, we are glad that Thabo did agree to come and speak on behalf of the province. Just a short song as we invite Thabo.
Thank you, Program Director. I'm still in a state of shock. So pardon me if I really cannot express myself the normal way I do. Saturday, when the news came, I really struggled. I couldn't sleep. I had some discussion with some of my colleagues. I was really worried when the social media started the rumors. But I didn't want to blame those in the social media or those in the mainstream media. I said, how could we have assisted them? And I think as communicators, we failed Ronnie, because Ronnie would probably have handled that issue much better than we did. I met Ronnie in the ANC, of course, in the early 90s, 1991, 92. And we both of us, that's when because before then I was based in Limpopo. We used to work a lot with Matata Tsedu here. So when I got to Shell House, 51 Plain Street, working full time for the ANC Youth League, that's when I met Ronnie Mamoepa. But I didn't work directly with him at that time because he was working for the province or for the PWV region. But much later, when he became the national spokesperson of the ANC, I worked directly with him. Incidentally, at the time, I was also appointed as the head of communications, or head of communication and publicity for the ANC Youth League. And that meant I had to work directly with Ronnie. I found him a strange character at that time because he would come to me and say, "Where are you? Why aren't you here with me?" I say, "Hey, I'm a member of the ANC Youth League, NWC, official, elected. And you work for the ANC, so why should I report to you?" He says, "No, man, because we work together." Then we used to joke like that. But I then ended up spending a lot of time with him. And it was during that time that I learned a lot about communication. I had learned a bit from other colleagues, but when I spent time with Ronnie, I learned more because I could see him in action as he would take a call from a journalist or initiate a call. In fact, most of the calls he initiated, a good communicator, unlike those of us who wait to be called by journalists. So I hear people say, no, he never got angry with anybody, never fought. Actually, no, he used to get angry with a lot of people. And he fought with a lot of people. But they didn't fight over personal things and so on. They fought about work. So he fought with a lot of journalists, editors, and so on, especially when he thought they wrote something about the ANC without adequately reflecting his views or the views of the ANC. I remember once, I think it was the Star, they published a lot of opinion articles by people who said a lot of bad things about the ANC. And it was over a period of time. So Ronnie called Peter Sullivan, who was the editor at the time. And Peter Sullivan said, no, but we cannot keep on giving you space. People use this space to write whatever they believe. And he said, but no, you must give us a right of reply. He harassed him until Peter Sullivan relented. And when he relented, you know, he said, okay, Ronnie, you've got the whole page. Give me articles now. So Ronnie had to find different people to write articles to fill that page in the Star. So that was Ronnie for you. But he also used to fight with his own colleagues. But they fought about work. So when he thought they didn't do much, he wouldn't take that. I mean, those of his colleagues would probably know even now that he was not easy to please because he demanded the best from everybody. Those who worked with him at DERCO used to come to me to complain, some of them crying, saying, what do we do with Ronnie now? Of course, they knew that I would just talk to him. At the time, I was at GCIS. So one of the things that I learned at that time, when I say Ronnie really, I really learned a lot about communication from Ronnie, is that, you know, we probably think, and you know, government doesn't teach communication. There's no orientation. We don't teach people how to do things and so on. We say, Chief, here, you are a communications officer or a spokesperson and so on. So what's my job? Compile information, write statements, and answer calls from the media. So issue press statements or call press conferences. But that's not all about communication. So Ronnie taught me that it is not the press conference. The press conference is just one, is part of the process. That you have achieved or accomplished your task when the story is written and it's in a prominent space in the newspaper or in radio or any other broadcast media. But that's also not enough. That the message must be closest to the message that you intended to communicate. If you fail that, you can have 100 people in a press conference and they write things that are not related to your message, and you look bad in whatever is written, then you still have not achieved anything. So what's the challenge then? We used to spend a lot of time talking to journalists in the background. So Ronnie used to say, you see, Chief, we are writing this statement, we'll issue it. And they may or may not use it. But we must talk to them. And he says there are things that we need to explain which we may not be able to say in the statement. So one of the things, you know, as we were in the ANC Youth League, we used to read a lot and we used to hear a lot of things being said about the ANC. And there was the issue, the problem of leaks. So people were saying, you know, this NEC of the ANC leaks a lot. Because stories would be written and they say according to highly placed sources and so on, sources in the NEC. And me and Ronnie, so we used to say, no, how do we deal with this thing? Well, maybe we go out and try and fish. Who are these people who are leaking? No, you can't find them. Because Matata would not reveal who gave him a story. He has to protect his source. So we can't go to Matata and say, but who told you this? No, we can't. But what do? We then said, we must be the most reliable source to Matata. So when so-and-so thinks about a source, this source, so if we see a story in the paper written, and they say according to sources, if the message we know about it is what we worked on, then it's fine. Other people can say, well, leaks and so on, but that's fine. Because that gives you control. That's why Blade was saying the media used to eat out of Ronnie's palms. It's that control. So every communicator, one lesson that we must then learn from Ronnie is that every communicator must make themselves the most reliable source of information. So the issue, whether they write the story and attribute it to you or not, I'm saying even those that they write for non-attribution or for anonymous sources, that source must be you. You must be worried if you are not that source and you call yourself a communicator. Remember, in that way, then you know that, okay, I'm in control here. There are the journalists rely on me. They don't have to go and find somebody else who will give them what they believe is the real story. So even when they see what is in the statement, they know that they will come to me. They won't go to somebody else to say, well, give us the real story. That I learned and I've continued to practice it throughout. So even the people that I worked with or I worked for, they knew I would tell them that, look, trust me to handle these issues. Whichever way I'm going to handle it, I will not create problems for you. If I do, you can come and disown the story and so on, and then we'll see how to manage it. I'm saying, so that's one of the key lessons that we learned. And I know years later, I would talk to Isop Pahad, one of the people who I also learned a lot from him. And he would say, Chief, whose source are you? Tell me, whose source are you? I say, but why are you asking me that? He says, no, but these people have sources. But you as a communicator, you must be a source. I say, well, yeah, I am. I'm their source, all of them. But which is true. But now, to do that also, one of the things I learned from Ronnie, and I don't need to spend much of your time, program director, is that to manage that, you also need to build trust. So one of the things that used to worry Ronnie a lot is those journalists who then break that trust. So we give him a story in confidence. and they go, the way they treat it, it just exposes you that no, they got this from Mamoepa. And he would be livid when such things happen. And now I recall when some of those things happen, he would then, actually he would be hesitant to speak to some of those journalists. Well, he would say, well, go and talk to them. Remember, they need to know this thing, but I can't tell them because I don't know who they are going to tell. So we would manage that. Even at the time when I was just spokesperson of the ANC Youth League. And of course, one of the things then that I need to say about Ronnie is that he always thought about improving communication, of course, through the media. So he would never be satisfied. For him, so he would say, okay, whatever we achieved today, we achieved. What about tomorrow? What should the newspapers write about us, say about us tomorrow, or radio or anybody else, other media? And we would think and find a way to get things out in the media. And then we would go on and implement those. When he came to government, he did the same thing. He continued the same way. He went to work at the Department of Foreign Affairs. And one of the things, so we belonged to a cluster because I later then joined the national government at GCIS. And I was responsible for strategy and coordination. So we were part of this, at that time the cluster was called the IRPS. So we said, in this cluster, we want to brief the media every week. But we went to the ministers, and Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma didn't want to do those briefings. So we said, but we have to do it. Then we had to find Aziz Pahad, who was deputy minister at the time. And Aziz gladly agreed. And the next challenge then was, what information do we have? So we went to all the desks at Foreign Affairs and say, give us information every week because we have to brief the media every week. Now, before I sit down, because I see I've used up all my time, I just want to say something, you know, in June, I made a call to Ronnie, so one of the things, that was our last conversation. And he was worried about everything that is happening in the country today. And he said, from a communications point of view, we need to do something about it. So we were discussing, and he said to me, unfortunately, I'm not well, so we can't meet now. And then we agreed that we would meet when he's well enough. But he said to me, how do we deal with this thing? Because we are not at GCIS and we don't hold positions. But that should not stop us from intervening. And he then said, me and him would go and speak to Minister Dlodlo. And he said, if I don't do it, you do it. But sadly, we never got to do that. I didn't do it, so I failed him. But maybe there's still time to redeem myself. Rest in peace, Ron.
Thank you, Thabo. I think you didn't fail, Ronnie. Minister Dlodlo is still around, and I'm sure he will be able to give you a hearing. I think we are going to have the next speaker from government, national government. And I just thought, as I'm going to be calling a national government spokesperson, I just wanted to share another moment with Ronnie. When I moved from the then Shell House after the elections, Ronnie said, come, let's go together. Let's go and work for the Premier's office, and we'll deal with the rest when we get there. And I didn't have a CV, he didn't have a CV. We just rocked up in the morning, and then he said, no, we'll deal with the rest when we get in. And we get in there, Ronnie says, no, let's find something to do. We need to do communication. And before I knew it, Ronnie was in Premier's office, Ronnie was in the legislature, Ronnie was in the provincial ANC. And I was just confused because I don't know anybody and I don't know what is expected. So I then asked, Ronnie, where are you working? Because I'm now confused whether I'm supposed to also follow Ronnie everywhere. And he says, no, Pumla, we work everywhere. We have to make sure that the work happens. So that's Ronnie for you. Meant good, didn't want to be bogged down with paperwork. And lo and behold, poor Chris Vick, who also joined us at that time, was the one who was left with the task of doing the paperwork, trying to get us to sign, fill in the Z83, the structure and everything. And that was Ronnie for you. But at this point, I'm going to be inviting Joy, who's going to speak on behalf of communicators as national government. And with a song, can we invite Joy?
Thank you, Sis Pumla, Minister, Befundisi, colleagues, members of the media, Molweni Betun. It was just after 9 on Monday evening when I received a call instructing me to speak on behalf of government communicators today. Of course, a number of questions went through my mind because I felt there were so many others who've known Ronnie for longer and therefore were better placed to speak here this morning. However, as a true soldier, I quickly remembered, Ndobana, you don't question instructions, no matter how bizarre you think they are. Of course, I think what I couldn't get off my mind at that time was the picture of myself, Ronnie, the last time we were together in Cape Town. It was one of those emotional and bittersweet moments. We spent more than an hour chatting about everything and anything. Of course, Ronnie being himself, he did most of the talking. And little did I know it was for the last time. For some reason, Ronnie told me stories dating back to when he was 13 years old as a political activist. He basically took me through his entire life story. And I kept on interjecting him and reminding him, because I wanted to go to my office, but Ubudroni wouldn't stop. And I'm just so grateful because we had agreed to meet again, but then it didn't happen. And I'm just honored to be standing here today talking about Ubudroni. Since his passing, so much has been said about Ubudroni, so much. Besides his communication skills, to me, Ubudroni was self-denying, he was caring, and he was simply human. He didn't mind, Ubudroni didn't mind being the joker just to make others feel comfortable. He was a typical Buti to me, that's why I call him Budroni. He was brutally honest at times because so I need such people. And I remember when I had a fallout, I won't mention the person's name, in the DP's office. I found him very upset and angry. And his speech is he was pre-planned. Ubudroni listened to my rant, and once I was done venting, Utigum, you know, Joy, you and so would make for great colleagues. You just need to find each other because you both want the best for your principals. There's no need for all this noise. Why let drama, Joy? Why send the drama? There's no need. Hey, Budroni, I won't mention his name. You know what? This is very simple. This issue can be resolved. The way because I'm going to tell him this and this and this. Budroni was like, no, in fact, this is minor. Let's just resolve it. And he told us exactly what we need to do. And needless to say, that right now, me and that particular person are the best of buddies. We're colleagues and we're friends. What I'm trying to say here is that Ubudroni was all about solutions. He was not petty in his views. He was always honest. And his views, whether they were good or bad, one thing I know, they came from a good place. That was Ubudroni. Ubudroni embodied the true values of a public service. He had a way of maintaining calm in the midst of the chaos. He was what every communicator should aspire to be. Ubudroni as well, in the sense that he wanted to fit with people from all generations. I mean, when he was with me, Ubudroni, closer, he would change his jargon, his mannerisms, he would even change, accent, just to make me comfortable. In fact, Ubudroni was just all about making people comfortable. He was adaptive. I'm not sure how many people of his caliber would make me laugh the way Ubudroni did. He was simply amazing. There isn't one instance when I was in his company that I wouldn't learn a thing or two. Ubudroni had a way of imparting knowledge without being intimidating or overwhelming. He didn't behave like a Mr. Know-it-all guy, government, because he's just a Mr. Know-it-all guy, he's intimidating, Ubudroni was just not that. Ubudroni wasn't about self-glory. One thing he taught me, Ubudroni, was to stay away from drama and simply focus on my work and compete with no one. Ubudroni once said to me, Joy, do not be distracted. Empower yourself with knowledge. Forget the side shows and remember that you are here to be of service to the country and to the people of South Africa. It is not about you, Joy. And I'll always remember that. In closing, I might not be half of the communicator Ubudroni was, but one thing I know is that I have taken a leaf out of his book and I'm determined to serve and be counted among those who want to see South Africa prosper. Ubudroni loved South Africa. Ubudroni loved government. And I sincerely hope that as civil servants, we could do the same to better serve this beautiful country of ours. Enkosi Budroni ngemfundiso zakho zonke, silahlekelwe kwaRhulumente, besijonge ukufunda lukhulu kuwe, umoya wakho ungaphumla ngoxolo. Enkosi.
Enkosi Joy, I'm not sure how many people know Ronnie's rank in the public service. It's one of those in the public service, you've arrived if you start throwing around your title. But I don't even remember. Quite frankly, I don't think Ronnie cared. She just wanted to work for government and make sure that he serves. At this point, I'm going to request a choir as we are going to be inviting the professor, Dr. Mantata Tsedu. Can we have a song?
Thank you, Pumla. These titles are a bit intimidating. Minister, or I should say, my minister, because I seem to own a minister these days. The rest of the panel, comrades and friends. I'm sure Ronnie wouldn't mind me saying comrades and friends. Since Ronnie's passing, I've been asking myself, when did I first see Ronnie? This obsession of Ronnie with communication, where did it start? And I'm now convinced that it started very early on. Ronnie ended up in jail because he believed his story about wanting to go and become an MK soldier has to be told as soon as he crossed the border. So he liaised with Tami Mkwanazi, may his soul rest in peace. And they arranged, pictures were taken, interviews were done, and once Ronnie and the gang had crossed whatever the river is, whatever the fence is, they would send a message back and Tami would have his scoop. So we may interrogate the intelligence of wanting to do that. But let's park that for a while and just look at Ronnie organizing this story at that age. And Tami, of course, was playing along. In Chivenda, we would say for Tami and Ronnie, the Mademanam Core. So, because I know that you are illiterate, I will translate that. Mademanam Core just means They are one and the same. So Tammy also bought into this scoop thing, to the point where he discussed this scoop that was coming with Zwelakhe on the phone. Now, his partner at the time, Amanda Kwadi, may his soul rest in peace, may her soul rest in peace, says to Tammy, but you can't discuss these things on the phone. Tammy says, no, Mara, ke bua ka Sesotho. And Amanda says to Tammy, but at Protea, there is a white cop called so-and-so who knows Sotho go phala le wena. Tammy says, no. So the short version of the story is that as Ronnie tries to create this scoop by going, they are nabbed, tried, ends up on Robben Island with Tammy. And at the trial of all of them, the tape of the phone conversation, it's played, and the interpreter from Sesotho to English for the court is the white cop from Protea. But I'm really just saying, from way back, Ronnie was into telling the story all the way. As a government communicator, Ronnie had principles and was very protective of those principles. Protective without being inhibitive. He would, if you say to Ronnie, I want an interview, you'll interview Ronnie first, because he'll want to know what exactly and where's this story going to run, when. Well, you work for Media 24, so is this story also going to run in Rapport and on News 24 and here and here and here? Because if I'm going to give you this opportunity, I must also get my thing. So it was not enough for Ronnie that you want an interview and he will just facilitate it. He would make sure that he got his pound of flesh in return. And sometimes he would even say to you, because those are his own takeaways that he wants out of this thing that may not be part of your own agenda. Now, maybe that's the capturing that Thabo was talking about, that they would sit there and plan the capturing of journalists. If you ask Ronnie for an interview and the interview is going to happen, when he comes to me, he would say, Hosh, then I know this is happening. But if he comes and he says, hey, Murare, then I know we're going around the maple tree. Yeah, there's no story here. I'm going to get a long explanation, and in the end, no, but Uskawara, we will still try. Ronnie is credited with turning the image of Home Affairs, which is true, that are plain. And in some instances, people say that as if anyone should then be able to do it wherever they are. That maybe Utladi should also be able to turn the fortunes of SAA in the public space just like that because Ronnie did it. Or Chwete should be able to turn the fortunes of Treasury just like that because Ronnie did it. It wasn't just Ronnie doing it. The department changed. Ronnie was telling the story of change in real terms. So it is important for the communicators who are here to understand what Ronnie represented. He represented a communicator who understood the role and knew his story and was prepared to work hard. Sakina Kamwendo of SAFM, I have to make this advert. This is where I work. Yeah. But Sakina was talking about the time when the story of Home Affairs was happening, and that Ronnie would camp with her. She was at Metro at the time, and he would camp with her up to a point where almost every week they had a slot where they would be talking about Home Affairs. They would take calls from people, and Ronnie would go back to those people who have not been treated well. Now, that's the commitment that I am saying it's important that Ronnie exhibited. But Ndata Plain, Madam Minister, it is not going to happen if the story about the citizenship has not been fully explained to a point where it is accepted by the general public out there. So it doesn't really matter who is now at Home Affairs. Don't kill the person. Deal with the issue, because that is how Ronnie worked. He ensured that you dealt with the issue, and once the issue is dealt with, take that message out. So, Murare, because I'm going to go around the maple tree now, you did your bit. You didn't do spin, you did communication. You owe us nothing. The harrowing story by Tsepo, the younger brother, it's enough for us to say, you owe us nothing. You suffered to the end, and we should really release you, because eternal peace is due for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matata. I think at this point we are going to get a speaker from the presidency, the last department that Ronnie worked, and they will share a story as we invite Busani. Can we have a choir?
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the Minister and members of the Fourth Estate. Thank you for inviting me to represent the presidency here. Going through the program itself is enough to tell many tales of the life and times of Ronnie Mamoepa, because in each of the people who are listed on the program, he had a story about that person. Now, Ronnie, as old as he was to me, he reported to me at work. And so everything he did, he will come to me and say, Chief of Staff. And I'm sure many of you here will recall that each time we met you, we bumped into you with Ronnie, he will introduce you to me. Or introduce me to you, even if we've met 1,000 times before. And he will say, Chief of Staff, you see Joe? Ujolo, yeah, there from the Department of Health, he must communicate about condoms, you see. This guy has got a difficult task. This was communicating about IDs and passports. This one must tell people to use condoms, you know. And, you know, with the Pumla, he'll say, you know, Chief of Staff, Pumla, this one I was with her at DIP. I was with her at DIP, this one. This one, you know. And you were right, when the Reuters photographer, you know, passed away, he came to me and said, Chief of Staff, we are doing a message of support, you know, because this comrade has died, and it's all a long story. So whilst I was speaking, he said, no, don't worry, Chief of Staff, I will draft it for you. And it was, you know, it was drafted, and the Deputy President changed it, and eventually, you know, it went through. So I can tell a story with many of the people, you know, who are here. But maybe few things to note. It was been a very difficult period for us in the office of the Deputy President, understanding full well that we don't own Ronnie. He worked for us and many other departments, but in fact he was owned by whole of government and all of South Africa. Some of you, very few actually, I suppose neither myself will recall that when Martin Luther King died, Nina Simone, you know, penned a song, very beautiful song that Nina Simone did, titled Why. And the lyrics there is about the king of love is dead. And I think there is no song that better describes the pain we feel and the significance of Mamoepa in our lives. Because in that song, Nina Simone describes what Martin Luther King meant for the people of America and the struggling people worldwide. And when the opening lines, when she says, once upon the planet Earth, lived a man of humble beginnings and humble being, whose main purpose in life was to teach love and freedom. And I think that's the best description of the life and times of Mamoepa. Now, many of you here, many of you women who are here, you are very unlucky if you've never been kissed by Ronnie. But Ronnie will kiss any woman, even in the presence of the husband. And Ronnie, when you travel with him through the commercial airports, you know, it was better if we use watercloak. If you travel with him through the commercial airports, you really will struggle and you will miss your flight because he's meeting and kissing and kissing everybody. But in retrospect, it shows how compassionate Mamoepa was. He was a very compassionate, you know, man. I called him Mamoepa. I never called him by, you know, first name. He had respect for me and the authority, though we're same level as DDG, but he had so much respect, and he always called me Chief of Staff. He never used my first name. I never liked it, but for him, he thought it was part and parcel of the authority and respecting the position you have. And I called him Mamoepa because he was older than me. But this was a compassionate man, and many of the people in this room will know that. Ronnie will worry about every person who is dead in Atteridgeville, and will miss very important assignment and say, no, I need to go and bury this person, and will always tell you a story about that person. Now, 2 weeks ago, we lost Prudence Mabele, whom we worked with a lot in the South African National AIDS Council. And we had a conversation with Ronnie in May when we last had this interaction. And on the occasion of the presidency budget vote. So we had arranged a group of 5 young women that the president has interacted with in the past 12 months. Now, Mamoepa insists to bring a camera, and he goes around looking for Elmond, who was assigned to do something for the president. And he brings back Elmond and said, no, Chief of Staff, we must take this picture, you know. And he demands that we take this picture, and the picture is taken, and Prudence tells a story that the reason we didn't see her in the past 3 months was that she wasn't well, but you know, as you all know, she passed away 2 weeks ago. Now, in the conversation we had with Prudence, we always understood that Prudence, as an AIDS activist, wasn't just a rebel without a cause. This was a person who was fighting for human rights a person who was fighting to reclaim the ontological density of people who are infected and affected by HIV and AIDS, because they were asserting their being and their humanness. And in the conversation we've had and all the experiences with Mamoepa, one comes to one conclusion, that this was a humane man who was very humble, who understood that the totality of his life was part of a bigger canvas made up of different pieces, which each one of you who are gathered here today made a contribution to. So it was the highest, ultimate epitome of what it means to be human and to be humane, as he always treated other people with care. Now, there are some few anecdotes, that characterize the type of the relationship we had with Ronnie. So, there are these fake news things going on. So as Ronnie passes, there's 2 press statements that he had prepared, which he did not release because he got ill and they were still in his computer, and we decided to forgo them. So there is this fake news site called Weekly Expose. One of its targets is the deputy president, so they write stories about him almost every day, part of the Bell Pottinger outfit. Now they write this story, which they've tried to send to various newspapers, and nobody will publish it because they understood the fact that it was fake news. But they publish it as if it's something that happened yesterday. So Mamoepa says, no man, asizodlala amabhanti intila, So he decides to call Kenny. So we had a conversation with Kenny Kunene, who runs Weekly Expose, by the way. But in the end, he comes back and says, Chief of Staff, so I say, but now I must we banti. I don't know, me, I'm not I'm a terrorist. That one is just a petty tag, And he then prepared the follow-ups. We said, no, don't prepare follow-up because it will end up in another news stable. Just leave these people because everybody knows what it is. And there's another one in a marginal paper called the Sentinel Chronicle, and the story of how the helicopter of the deputy president ended up landing in a police station. And this thing had been explained. Everybody knows who had paid for the landing pad there and how he's paying for it and so on. So he says, no, Chief of Staff, I think for the record we must report. But if we do, it will end up in the Star Business Day and everywhere else. And in the end, we didn't. But the point that he was making was, and he always said it to many people, Chief of Staff, don't create a situation. Now, as I understood it, by him talking about creating a situation, it's something like that happened on Saturday when he left us, because someone created a situation. Now, if I left this room here now and went outside and sent a tweet that says there was a bomb scare, someone will retweet that, and then all of you will think there was a bomb scare. And by the time we correct the story, it is too late. So that is what had happened. And he always argued that, Chief of Staff, spokespersons must not create a situation. Lastly, and I have to mention this because in the nature of the work that we do, we hardly spend time at home with the children and family. I'm yet to meet a man who speaks and praises his wife as much as Ronnie did. Because every day he tells you about Madame, every day. And I think I take my hat off to him, and it shows how compassionate and the type of the relationship we had. And we thank the family and the spouse in particular for giving us Ronnie and taking care of him. Thank you.
Thanks, Busani, for reminding us about the kisses. Indeed, Ronnie kissed all of us. You almost expect it when you see Ronnie coming there. You think, okay, I'm getting my kiss today. I don't know how many people who were still journalists when we were using a pager. Journalists were thriving on pager, and Ronnie's pager would not stop. And Ronnie returned those calls, even if it meant being late to what he was supposed to do. Ronnie needed to return those calls that came through the pager. And I think I have a story that I also wanted to share around the story of the pager. Ronnie comes in the morning as a ritual, goes through the newspapers, picks up a few stories that irritate him, and then some of them he would pick up a phone and phone the journalist or whatever. But on this one, she says, no, Pumla, we must call a briefing. Here, I'm not even calling, there are a lot of them, they are not telling the truth. So organize a briefing. Then the pager goes. The pager says he has to go to Pretoria. The media briefing is supposed to take place at 12. Ronnie says, I will make it. I must go and attend to this journalist who wants me in Pretoria. Goes, and lo and behold, Ronnie is late. The journalists are all there preparing for the media briefing. 30 minutes goes, 1 hour goes, 1 hour, 1 hour and a half goes. Then they go crazy, the journalists, because Ronnie is not there. So obviously others leave, and then Ronnie rocks up for almost over an hour and a half, and then he just continues, he apologizes, he gives a whole story of what really happened, why he was late. But anyway, he goes on, he gives this briefing. But what was remarkable about Ronnie is that after that media briefing, he says, Pumla, please give me the list of all of them who left. Ronnie called each and every one of them, apologizing and also giving them the same briefing that he gave the ones. And that was the kind of a human being Ronnie was. I think we will continue telling these good stories, and I hope some of us who are left behind will learn something from some of the legacy of Ronnie Mamoepa. At this point, I'd like to invite the DG of Home Affairs and would invite the DG with a song. Can I just remind the colleagues that we've got a camera outside. May you please use the opportunity to just go and give some messages which we will be packaging and sending them to the family. So in case you'd like to, you've forgotten or you missed the message, there is a camera outside. Please, we appreciate those messages because we are going to use it afterwards.
Program Director, Minister of Communications, Minister Ayanda Dlodlo, Mamoepa family, the leadership of GCIS, government communicators, members of the media, colleagues and friends, good morning. Thank you for this memorial service honoring a gallant freedom fighter, a time-tested public servant, a seasoned government communicator par excellence, Ronnie Mamoepa. A gathering of government communicators and the media is in itself a special tribute to this humble, calm, patient, cheerful, approachable, gently human, down-to-earth, and most likable patriot and servant of the people, Comrade Ronnie. He spent most of his life among communicators and reporters, serving the people. His ascension to the beyond at an early age of 56 is an unkindest cut death unleashed on a true patriot when his career was turning full cycle. The presidency was among high points in his communication calling, which he perceived while at Foreign Affairs as public diplomacy, as a former speaker said. When the shattering tidings of his passage hit us like a sharp blade in the spine, he was back in the presidency, indeed a rarity for me. Ordinarily, people often get to serve in high office but once in a lifetime with such fearless, indomitable, and unimpeachable spirit. You, who are seasoned communication practitioners, know that before Ronnie was spokesperson to the Minister Dlamini Zuma at Foreign Affairs from 2000 to 2009, where I personally met him for the first time. He was Communication Chief Director in the presidency. His vast experience in political communication includes head of communication for the ANC Regional Executive Committee and head of communications for Gauteng Premier Tokyo Sekgwale between 1994 and 1996. Indeed, he was a veteran and a dedicated communicator of note. We became even closer when together we joined Home Affairs in 2009 after the general elections. It was then the days of horror affairs. The most observant among us noted how hard it is to address Ronnie otherwise. It is simple and adoring Ronnie as he wanted it to be. Not Mr. Mamoepa or DDG, even in his position as Communications Deputy Director General at Home Affairs from 2011. He wouldn't accept any title. He preferred to be called Ronnie. This should begin to explain the person he truly was. He was down to earth and he was unassuming. Upon his shoulders neatly rests the accolades, man of the people, a leader who had no title, a true servant of the masses. Yet, in his remarkable life, a life cut short like a brief candle, brightening the corner, now gone dark. He touched our souls very deeply, and so it is with sadness we are gathered here in honor of his memory. Program Director, an important lesson for me is how he handled the media. He had this ability to understand the product itself, as we have said, Dr. Chip, whether a civic or an immigration issue. And he understood clearly the needs of the different segments of this audience: the youth, the women and men, the elderly, the business, and the foreign nationals. Thus, he was able to come up with a communication strategy befitting the particular grouping. He was able to come up with various channels of communication, effective and tailor-made for the task at hand. He inculcated to us the principle of talk to people and talk with people. How he does that, you'll say after a media briefing, you still need to go to a 12 down because there people are calling. You must go to a panel because people are talking. Furthermore, you could see he believed a communicator was not a message itself, or the one who usurped the role of the chief communicator from the political principle. In addition to him, communication was a must. Hence, a yes or a no from you would not have saved you from doing what he asked you to do. During the World Cup, I remember in 2010, we needed a billboard for the minister at airport, but AXA was saying no. He took that matter up, and at the end, that billboard was there, enlightening people coming for the World Cup. Another one, when there was a soccer match between Pirates and Chiefs, he wanted to go and deal with the smart card. It was a final, if I remember, of Nedbank. PSL says, no, we can't do that during this match. But on that day, the smart card was in the stadium, which was full. That was Ronnie. With him, politically, the face of the department was the minister or deputy minister. On that, he was constant as the sun rising from the east, bringing light and warmth to all of humanity. At the same time, he understood the role of management in communicating operational and administrative issues. Where he was concerned, the principal was expected to be the master of the subject matter. He wanted his principals to prepare media briefing statements with communicators so that they could answer questions. I remember when it sat in front of that computer like this, yeah, yeah, that is Ronnie. So to speak, he was a good African teacher, aspiring to be a man of law. One of the concepts I learned from him is the form and content of a media briefings. He taught us to distinguish an off-the-record briefing from an on-the-record briefing, and so on. The beauty of it all was in the fact that there should be no room for a spin, for dishonesty, or worst of all, for a lie. You could see he learned from the best. He was quite clear on the role of the media, understanding that the media questions must be answered with all honesty and integrity. If he goes to my PA, I said, hey, there is in my program, I've got this appointment today. He will say, no, push that away. This is what we want to deal with it. This is to disseminate information to the people through the media, a powerful medium for distributing information to the populace. He believed and lived the saying that it takes two to tango. He wanted feedback on communication efforts, and thus for him, media monitoring was critical to test the impact of communication drive. This is another important lesson I learned from Ronnie. When I need the media, I trust the media will be there, but reciprocity, like content, is king. Equally, we have a duty as government officials to avail ourselves to the media, to respond to the media inquiries. When there was cost-cutting measures, you didn't want us to say we won't prepare for a lunch and a snack after the media brief. We said, no, we can cut somewhere, but not on this one. That was Ronnie Mamoepa. For him, internal communication was also a key. Departmental officials as ambassadors must be informed. Indeed, it was a question of deploying internal means of communicating to complement what you do externally. At Home Affairs, we will sit with your cell phone and you listen. I am Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Then you start saying, yes, Minister, because you are thinking it's the minister calling. God is the message which Ronnie did and is sending to every staff member in the department. That's what you were talking about and say it was to change the department, not just about communication. In these schemes of things, synergy is also critical in running the communication machinery of minister and that of deputy minister as well as of the department. He believed that there must be one communication in the department, not split. Ronnie may have held his own views about the Americans, but one thing is certain. He truly admired the communication system of the Americans. He interacted with the system in 1998. Then he was selected as South Africa's candidature of the Eshowa Exchange Fellowship in Philadelphia in the United States of America. So he was exposed to high-level communication in various US state agencies, including the White House. Ronnie would say about the American communication system that it is a well-oiled machinery, knowing fully why governments must talk to the people. All the time, Chief, repeating messages consistently, effectively, and this would say, without fail, Chief, that was Ronnie. Hence, he was saying we can communicate every week. At the time now, just want to try and go to the last because I don't want to go over my 10 minutes. I know I'm already started. Let me just deal with the part of Ronnie as a manager. Ronnie had a different character as a manager. Though it looks like playful, but he understood clearly what is his responsibility as a manager. He will never go to any meeting and then do a presentation, no. But he identified people within his team and trained them. Whether I've got a management meeting, those colleagues will stand up and present for the branch of communication in behalf of law. Lastly, on behalf of the department, our minister, deputy minister, and public servants, I convey our heartfelt condolences to Ronnie's family, Audrey, his children, his siblings, and to the entire family, colleagues, friends, and comrades across the length and breadth of our beloved republic. At Home Affairs, we were hoping one day he will return to finish the work he started to transform our communication. On excellent in government communication, without Ronnie, we are left poorer. We will remember him as a militant, loyal, and a committed servant of the people who was fortified by years on Robben Island at very young age. With the many who were shocked by his untimely departure at Unista Hospital, was saying, your loss is our loss. Lastly, Ronnie, I know, was a gift for all. Communicators at Home Affairs always say they learned a lot from him. I, for one, did learn much from him. Farewell to the Dean of Communicators. Stalandwe, I take my hat off for you, Ronnie.
Enkosi Dichi. Colleagues, we are about to take the last speaker, and just before I give the minister over, on Monday, when the communicators said we want to bid farewell to one of our own, the journalists said we want to join because we feel part with this gallant public servant. We contacted the minister, and the minister said, this is one event that you should do. Not only to do it, I will shelve everything in my diary to make sure that I join in celebrating the life of Ronnie. Today, Minister, we're very grateful that you've been part of this ceremony where we really had an opportunity to reflect on the life of Ronnie, and I'm hoping that some of the presentations that were done today and It's something that each and every one of us has taken something, and we will go back as a way of celebrating Ronnie, to live the values of Ronnie. At this point, I'd like to invite the minister with a song from the choir that has been really great since we started.
Beautiful voices indeed. Thank you very much to the choir. Program Director Ngiyabonga kakhulu. The Mamoepa family, as represented here by Ronnie's younger brother. DG Apleni, Ronnie's former boss. Father Mkhatshwa, I'm happy to see you here. You're not a communicator, you're not a journalist, but you're Father Mkhatshwa. And I'm so happy to see you here. Media practitioners, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, abantwana bami base GCIS nabase SABC, now my firstborn is SABC, and the Department of Communications and the Communicators Forum from all provinces, from national departments, from the local sphere of government. You know, I was hoping that at some point there will be a revolutionary song for a dear departed soul whose life was just about the revolution. But sadly, ayikho sizoyicula on Thursday, siyicule even at the funeral, but uRonnie was just that vibrant person. You know, I looked up the dictionary yesterday in putting together my speech. At 12:05, I sent it to the office just to check spelling and other things. And I found a few words like sedulous, efficient, productive, committed, diligent, industrious, assiduous, tireless. These are the few words that describe Ronnie Mamoepa's attitude to work and duty. cheerful, chirpy, contented, delectable, enraptured, exuberant, humorous, invigorating, mirthful, wacky, zingy, and just plain pleasant. The list to describe his infectious character and approach to life does not even begin to do justice to describe Ronnie's character. On Sunday, the 23rd of July, South Africans retired for the night after receiving the tragic news of the death of this human being, a beautiful human being, a struggle veteran, a dedicated civil servant, Mr. Ronnie Mamoepa. Actually, Comrade Ronnie, to me, a humble, disciplined, and dedicated champion of our people. As I reflect with pride on the life and times of Ronnie Mamoepa, perhaps it's befitting to borrow from the final line of the 11th thesis on Feuerbach by Karl Marx. It reads, philosophers have hitherto interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. Ronnie belonged to a generation of staunch revolutionaries who dared to change our world. I'm also reminded by the words of this illustrious author, communicator, Noam Chomsky, who says, if we do not believe in freedom of expression for the people we despise, then it means we don't believe in it at all. That's one of my favorite quotations, Noam Chomsky, who also happens to be one of my favorite communicators, one of my favorite authors. Ronnie first came to prominence as a young teenage activist, like all of us, in the late 70s and 80s, and was eventually jailed and served time on Robben Island. He was a fierce and dedicated freedom fighter who never took a step back in fighting for the cause of liberation, justice, and freedom. During his lifetime, Ronnie served in many capacities, but wherever he served, he sought to make a difference. He was fearless, dedicated, extremely hardworking. He would and could not rest until a job was done. Many fellow government communicators here today will no doubt remember being called to action by Ronnie. Ronnie didn't care where you worked. Whether you were in the Department of Health, you were in the Department, because he felt he had to mentor and guide all of us. He didn't care whether I was a minister. Ronnie felt he had to mentor and guide me too, because he was, of course, better than me in communications. Many of you today grew under the tutelage of this captivating storyteller. He was meticulous in his approach and insisted to those who worked with him to give their best at all times and more. He delivered excellence and superior communications products and expected the same from all of us, including colleagues from the media. When I first heard that Ronnie had been admitted to hospital, I literally felt sick. When I got the news, I called Busani, his colleague. And Busani never returned my calls. I ended up sending him a message. It's still on my WhatsApp. And I saw last night that he hadn't actually opened it. The message reads, Marawai Busani. He never returned my calls. And I resigned to the fact that I would see Ronnie when he was discharged. But at some point I was happy, Busani, that you didn't return my call. I was very happy because I also resisted to keep calling you or calling anybody. And I didn't care at some point whether you returned my call, because I was a lot more comfortable with no news, but lived in the hope, in comforting hope. But I lived in the comforting hope that he would recover soon. I held on to a false belief, and I was happy with my false belief, that Ronnie was the type that was made to recover quickly, because life was a little slower with Ronnie in hospital. Actually, life was a lot slower with Ronnie in hospital. I was told of a story when a few years back, Ronnie took ill and was in hospital for a few weeks. When he came out, a certain colleague, happy to welcome him back, said, "Ronnie, welcome back. You gave us such a fright there. We thought you were gone." Ronnie, in his usual wit, responded, "My boy, don't wish for that day, because at my funeral, you won't have access. It will be so big that the only way for you to gain entry will be if you are an ANC marshal or carrying an ANC Youth League banner marching in front of the hearse." We will see that on Saturday. Ronnie was always like, I think all of you know from time to time. Ronnie was like citro soda. I'm sure all of you have experienced citro soda from time to time. He was effervescent, robust, strong, and it just brought a sense of calm and relief in sad and uncomfortable moments and situations. I knew I would never visit him in hospital when I heard he was in a coma. I was never going to do that. And I just could not fathom a still and quiet Ronnie. It wouldn't have been Ronnie for me, and I didn't want to experience that. That was a sight that would have scared, frightened, and distorted my view of this lively character I got to know and love. I will forever remember his warm smile, including his kiss, Busani. I was one of the lucky ones that always got a kiss from him. His open and welcoming nature, as well as his deep intellect and critical thinking. Government communicators and the media fraternity joined the nation in mourning the passing of Ronnie Mamoepa and sends sincere condolences for this loss. He was a stalwart of the liberation struggle, a dedicated and humble servant, and a loving husband, father, brother, and a friend. Ronnie was a true, loyal, and dependable friend to many. I remember traveling back to Johannesburg with him from Comrade Collins Chabani's funeral. He coaxed me into abandoning my transport and traveled back with him and Comrade Faisal. This is one of the things I did not declare. The lift that I got from Faisal and Ronnie Mamoepa. He spoke most of the way on that journey to Johannesburg. He knew I needed love and comfort from true comrades from that funeral. As caring and loving, Ronnie would not have me travel back to Johannesburg alone on that long drive to Johannesburg after I had buried my comrade and friend, Comrade Collins Chabani. He made the journey back so much more pleasant. By the time we got back to Jozi, I knew so much more about Ronnie, about his naughty years, the things that he did. In the struggle, the naughty boy with girls. I marveled at his great gift of storytelling and his deep love and respect for fellow comrades, his party, and his people. This is one day I do not mind Amafinyela, you will just have to bear with me. I don't care to be pretty or look proper today, it's just one of those days. This week I will bury another friend, comrade and colleague, who comforted me in that time of great sadness and loss. This week I honor and pay tribute to another friend and colleague who placed people before self. that song can never comfort me. It's going to make me cry more. But thank you for the love. I know I can say that the thoughts and prayers of the nation are with the Mamoepa family. My condolences to the ANC, Ronnie's political home, from when he was a child until his untimely death. Ronnie may have passed on, but his legacy lives on, and his contribution to our country will never be forgotten. On behalf of the Government Communicators Forum, and on behalf of colleagues in the media space, I would like to call on all South Africans to join us as we pay tribute to a life well lived in dignity and in honor. Ronnie and countless others of his generation lived to serve the people of South Africa. Ronnie represented a generation of those who gave up their childhood and youth for a life of struggle to ensure the liberation of all South Africans when there was no prospect of reward or recognition. There were no salaries, there were no bonuses, there were no fringe benefits. The only thing you faced was imprisonment or death. We owe it to the sacrifices of Ronnie and countless others to protect and expand on the many social and economic gains that we have made since 1994. We should never forget the role played by Ronnie and others in helping us to move from a repressive regime to a society built on the values of human rights, dignity, and democracy. It is up to us to carry this legacy by shaping a national identity and consciousness that is built on mutual respect, tolerance, and acceptance. Our country undoubtedly has many challenges. However, Ronnie and millions of others continue to fight and work for a better and more inclusive nation. He taught us the values of humility, sacrifice, and service. Friends, we have a choice to make. We can either do nothing or hope that someone else will be the change we want to see. Or like Ronnie, we can take the proverbial bull by the horns, lead and become the change we want to see. The sacrifices of Ronnie and others has brought us this far, but there is still more to be done. Let us get to work and together build the nation of our collective dreams. Rest in peace, my comrade, my friend, my fellow fighter.
Thank you very much, Minister. As I get to the closure, before we ask Reverend, I've requested the family to just give us an update on the funeral arrangements.
The Mamoepa family would like to thank everyone around here. It has been a very long 5 weeks of my entire life. You know, my brother would always say to me that media will create you and crush you. You don't say so many things that you are not expected to say. So that is why I'll stick to whatever that I've been called for here. Tomorrow there will be a memorial service at Tshwane Event Center, which used to be called Pretoria Showgrounds, at 10 in the morning. And the funeral will take place on Saturday. The service will be held at St. Albans Cathedral Church in Francis Bar Street. In the past, we called that Skuman Street. And the service at the church will start at 8 up until the last speaker will be moving to Zandfontein Cemetery thereafter. We really appreciate your messages of condolences. We wouldn't be here and stand strong in front of all of you today without those messages. I'm not that jovial and mad as my brother. I saw there on the program they said Nkuseli, his former boss. And I remember he told me that he once told Nkuseli that you are not my boss. You report to the minister, I also report to the minister. So I thought he will rectify that today. But what I know that he respected everyone, despite your rank and all of those things. But when it comes to ministers, whether the minister is young or what, he will refer to them as minister. And he was the first one to call Madam, the former minister Nkosazana as Dr. Nkosazana. Amongst all of the people she worked, she was the Minister of Health, nobody called her Dr. Nkosazana. And he insisted to the journalists that they should refer to her as Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Despite all of those things, he respected her and took her as her mom, always. And but they will have some arguments, and then he will say to her that they are reporting to the president, and then if something is wrong, the minister will tell him that ubaba kabantwana bami ungathi no sihlukene. You see, so he loved everybody. No matter where you're coming from, your political affiliation and everything, he respected that. He was instrumental in Jeff Masemola's burial, who was the PAC mentor and all of those things. He loved everybody. He was close to Herman Mashaba, even if when he left and joined the DA, all of those things. But when he was with him, he always told him, we're not talking politics. We stick to this one. So I like to say thank you. Father Mkashwa knows him also. He always told him to stick to principles. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the family. As we conclude to invite Father Mkwacha, may I take this opportunity to first thank the family for being with us throughout. And I would like to also thank my colleagues from the provinces, from the national and from the local government. This event wouldn't have been a success without you. I'd also like to thank the members of the media, and particularly the manner in which...
All right, a very good afternoon. You're with the Midday Report. Those are live.
We as government would like to thank you, thank you, thank you. You've done a sterling job, and we trust that you will continue to do until we finally take Ronnie to his final resting place. And we trust that a lot of us, those who have not interacted with Ronnie, I think the tributes, we trust they will make us to go back and reflect and see whether are we still on course in doing what is expected to be done. And lastly, I would like to thank the minister, and I would like to thank the DG for being with us on this day. And at this point, I'd like to invite Father Mkhatwa to give us the closing remarks, or closing prayer rather, maybe the choir could get the father up with a song.
From the fraternity of the moral regeneration movement, but also special personal condolences from my own experience and knowledge of the comrade who has left us. Now let me address God. God, you are a mystery. God, you don't consult. Because everything happens within your overall providence. Each and every one of us is given a place and a slot and time frames within which they have to live out their own existence in the world. At this time, I think you need to remind us that the task of communicators is an extremely important one. Because communicators are not only conveyor belts of raw statistical information and knowledge, generally speaking, but they also interpret the information, the data which they receive, and that's what they pass on to the readers, to the consumers of their information. We also know that during times of conflict, the first casualty, they often say, is the truth. So therefore, these sons and daughters of yours called communicators, they have an extremely important role to play in the development of communities, in nation building, because they also touch the most delicate and central part of what it means to be a human being. We're here, therefore, to say to you, thank you for giving us Ronnie, whose meaning in life, whose task in our communities, whether in government or in society, generally speaking, has been expressed so well by people whose lives have been touched by him. What is coming out loud and clear is that your sons and daughters and all those who will be attending the memorial service and his funeral what they are hearing is not so much what a wonderful guy Ronnie was. It's about the values, spiritual, ethical, moral values that guided him in life. His humility, simplicity, friendliness, spirit of forgiveness, his understanding of what it means to be a good neighbor, what it means also to avail oneself to assist colleagues and other people in society. So this is what Almighty God we're hearing from the messages that have been communicated to us. But what we're also hearing is that Ronnie is still very much alive and with us. Because what has happened is only the departure, as it were, of his physical part of his life and existence. He is now transformed into another life, which we always grapple to understand exactly the form of that life. Throughout centuries, wise men and women, philosophers and thinkers, they've been grappling with this mystery, what that transformed life actually really means. So that's why, God, you have kept all these things very close to your chest in order to give us an opportunity to pray for wisdom, for understanding, but also to give us courage that we should not run away from the reality of death. The beginning of life is great. We celebrate, we all sing hallelujah. But when you terminate that life as the Omega, we are depressed and worried. So today we're therefore here to say, continue to bless, to guide the communications practitioners whose task has been so clearly articulated by Ronnie's life and his work in our community. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father, and thank you, a special thank you to the choir. We have come to the end. Drive safely, those who are driving back to their various places. We're done.